Hey all, welcome back to another episode of House of the Wolf Horror. I do hope you enjoy tonight's tales. If you do, stop and think about leaving us a like or comment section. And if you do enjoy the tales, please think about checking out my book, The Hidden Things That Hunt Us. It's available on Amazon as well as Kindle. So, I'll leave the link in the comments below. Hope you all have a great night and happy Thursday. The Canadian Rockies in late October have a way of swallowing sound. Snow dampens everything, the wind steals the rest, and the mountains loom like old gods waiting for someone to trespass. Kat and I had been hiking for years, but this was our first time this far north, deep in Cascadena territory, where the maps thin out and the locals warn you with a seriousness that doesn't feel like superstition. Stay on the marked trails, the old man at the trading post had told us, and if you hear something running at night, don't look for it. I'd laughed. Kat hadn't. She had always been the more intuitive one, the one who felt the forest before she saw it. I love that about her. I love a lot of things about her, but I didn't listen to her nearly as often as I should have. We started our trek under a sky the color of steel wool. The air tasted like snow. The spruce trees leaned in close, their branches heavy with frost. The trail wound upward towards a ridge that promised a panoramic view of the valley. We never made it to that ridge. By the time the storm rolled in, we were already too far from the trailhead, too confident, too stubborn. The snowfall thickened into a white curtain. The wind rose like something waking up. And then the trail disappeared. Not faded, vanished. Buried under a foot of fresh powder in minutes. We should turn back, Kat said, her voice tight. We can still find it, I insisted. It's just a little snow. But it wasn't a little snow, and the forest around us had gone unnervingly silent. No birds, squirrels, no wind through the branches, just the soft, steady hiss of falling snow. And then, faint, almost imagined, a distant rhythmic thudding. Footsteps, running, but too fast, too heavy, too wrong. Kat's hands tightened around mine. Wesley, she whispered, we need to move. We stumbled through the storm for what felt like hours, though it was probably less. My phone had no signal, the GPS froze, and the compass spun uselessly. The forest pressed in around us, the trees growing denser, older, their trunks black against the whiteout. The footsteps, or whatever they were, came and went, sometimes close, sometimes far away, sometimes circling. By dusk, the temperature had dropped sharply. My breath came out in thick plumes. Kat's lips were starting to turn blue. We need shelter, she said. And then, as if the wilderness had heard her, the trees parted, and a cabin stood in a clearing. Old, weather-beaten, half buried in snow, smoke curled from the chimney in thin, wavering lines. Someone's here, I said, relief flooding me. But Kat didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the cabin with a look I'd never seen before. Not fear, recognition. Wesley, she whispered, this place, it's wrong. We don't have a choice. I took her hand and pulled her toward it. The door creaked open before we could touch it. A man stood inside, tall, thin, wrapped in furs. His face was lined like cracked leather, his eyes dark and unreadable. You're lucky, he said. Another hour out there, you'd have been dead. He stepped aside. We entered. The warmth hit us like a physical force. A fire crackled in the stone hearth. The air smelled of pine resin and something else, something metallic. "Sit," the man said. "Warm yourselves." We did. He watched us with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "You're far from the marked trails," he said. "We got lost," I replied. He nodded slowly. "People get lost out here. The land is old. It remembers things. It keeps things." Kat shivered. "What things?" she asked. The man's gaze shifted to the window. Outside the storm raged, and beneath the wind, faint but unmistakable, came the sound of something running. Fast and circling. The man spoke without looking at us. "You heard it, didn't you?" It wasn't a question. Kat's voice trembled. "What is it?" The man closed his eyes. The Washougal. The word hung in the air like a curse. I'd heard it before, in passing, in stories, and the way people speak of things they don't want to believe in. A creature from Athabascan lore. A man transformed by hunger, greed, or broken taboo. A being that runs without tiring, hunts without mercy, and mimics human voices to lure the living into the cold. A cannibal spirit. A thing that should not exist. I swallowed hard. That's just a legend. The man opened his eyes. "Then why are you shaking?" I hadn't realized I was. The man introduced himself as Toma. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. "You can stay the night," he said, "but you must follow the rules." "Rules?" I asked. He nodded. 1. Do not open the door after dark for any reason. Kat and I exchanged a glance. 2. Do not speak to anything outside, no matter what voice it uses. My stomach tightened. "And 3, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "if it stops running, pray." The wind howled outside. Snow battered the windows. The footsteps, the running, grew louder, circling the cabin in wide predatory arcs. Kat pressed closer to me. "Toma," she said softly, "why is it here?" He stared into the fire. "Because something woke it." "What?" I asked. He didn't answer, not directly. Instead he said, "Washougal are born from hunger. Not the hunger of the body, the hunger of the spirit. Greed, obsession, betrayal. A person breaks a taboo, and the land punishes them, transforms them." He looked at us, then, his eyes sharp. "Something out here broke a taboo recently. Something close." A chill ran through me. "What kind of taboo?" Toma's gaze lingered on me for just a moment. "You'll know when it finds you." Night fell like a hammer. The running grew louder, closer, faster. The cabin walls shook with each pass. The fire flickered violently. Kat clung to my arm, her breath shallow. Toma sat perfectly still, eyes closed and listening. Then, suddenly, the running stopped. The silence was worse. Much worse. Toma's eyes snapped open. "Don't move," he whispered. A soft crunch of the snow came from just the other side of the door. Then another. Then a voice. Kat's voice. Wesley, please, please let me in. Cat's nails dug into my arm. That's not me, she whispered. The voice outside grew more desperate. Wesley, I'm cold. I'm hurt. Open the door. Toma rose slowly, silently, and placed a heavy wooden beam across the door. The voice changed. Lower, rougher, wet. Let me in. The walls groaned. The door shuddered. Something scraped along the wood. Long, deliberate strokes, like claws or bone. Then a sound I will never forget. A laugh, human almost, but stretched too far. Toma whispered something in a language I didn't recognize. Old, rhythmic, like a prayer. The thing outside stopped laughing. And then it spoke again. This time in my voice. Cat, he lied to you. Her breath hitched. Mara, he didn't tell you what he did. She squeezed her eyes shut. Don't listen, Toma said sharply. But the thing kept talking. And it knew things. Things I had never told her. Things I had hoped she would never learn. Her eyes opened slowly. Wesley, she whispered, what is it talking about? I couldn't answer. Not yet. Not with that thing listening. Not with the truth clawing its way up my throat. The creature outside scraped its claws along the door one last time. Then it ran, fast, circling, and waiting. The storm eased near midnight. The running slowed. The fire burned low. Toma slept lightly in the corner, one hand on a carved bone knife. Cat and I sat near the hearth, wrapped in blankets, our faces lit by the dying flames. She didn't look at me. Wesley, she said quietly, what did you do? I stared into the fire. I didn't mean for it to happen. That's not an answer. I swallowed hard. It was last year. That winter trip I took with my brother. She nodded stiffly. The one where he got frostbite? I shook my head. That's what I told you, but that's not what happened. Her eyes finally met mine. What happened? I took a shaky breath. We got lost, just like this, but worse. We ran out of food, out of water, out of everything. The memory hit me like a blow. He fell through the ice, broke his leg, he couldn't walk. I tried to carry him, but I couldn't. I left him there. I told myself I'd come back with help. Cat's face went pale. But you didn't. I shook my head. I panicked. I lied. I told the rescue team he wandered off. They searched for days. They never found him. Cat's voice trembled. You left him to die. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Outside, the running stopped. Dead silence. Toma sat up instantly. It heard you, he said. My blood turned to ice. What? Washuge are drawn to guilt, to broken bonds, to betrayal. You confessed. Now it knows your weakness. The silence outside deepened. Then, slowly, something pressed against the door. Not knocking, breathing, heavy, wet, and hungry. Toma stood. It's time to leave. Toma moved quickly, gathering supplies. A lantern, rope, a pouch of something that smelled like sage and iron. We can't stay here, he said. It knows you now, and it won't stop. He kicked snowshoes towards us. Put these on, stay close, and whatever you do, don't fall behind. We stepped outside into a world transformed. The snow had passed, the moon hung low and full, casting the snow in a pale, ghostly glow. The forest was silent. Toma led the way, moving with surprising speed for a man his age. Cat followed close behind him. I brought up the rear. The trees loomed like dark sentinels. The snow crouched softly beneath our feet. Then, faint but unmistakable, came the sound. Running. Far off, then closer, then gone. Toma didn't look back. It's testing us, he said, saying who'll break first. We moved faster. The forest grew denser, and the moonlight dimmed. Shadows stretched long and thin across the snow. Then Cat stumbled. I caught her. You okay? She nodded, but her breath came fast. Toma turned. We're close, he said. There's a ranger station 2 miles east. If we make it there. A branch snapped behind us, loud and too close. Toma's eyes widened. Run. We ran, branches whipped past, snow sprayed beneath our feet. The cold air burned my lungs. Behind us, something crashed through the trees. It was so fast. Cat screamed. I grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. Don't look back, Toma shouted. But I did, just once. And I saw it. A shape, tall, gaunt, wrong. Its limbs were too long and joints bent at impossible angles. Its skin stretched tight over bone. Its face. Oh God, its face. A human face twisted into something feral. Its mouth torn wide, its eyes were sunken in and burning with hunger. My brother's jacket hung from its shoulders. I nearly fell. Wesley, Cat cried. I forced myself forward. The creature shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and it lunged. Toma threw something behind us. A handful of powder that burst into a cloud of spark and smoke. The creature recoiled, screaming. Keep moving, Toma yelled. We ran until my legs felt like fire, until Cat collapsed in the snow. I lifted her. We're almost there, I gasped. But Toma had stopped. He stood at the edge of a clearing, staring ahead with horror. The ranger station was there, or what was left of it. The roof had been torn off, the walls shredded, blood stained the snow. Toma whispered a single word. No. The running began again, circling closer and faster. We were trapped. Toma pushed us towards the ruins. Inside, now. We ducked into the shattered station. The air smelled of blood and splintered wood. Toma drew his bone knife. It wants him, he said, nodding at me. But it will kill all of us to get to him. Cat grabbed my hand. We're not dying here. The running stopped, and then silence. Then slowly, the creature stepped into the clearing. It moved on all fours, its limbs bending like a spider's and its head tilted unnaturally, its mouth hanging open in a grotesque grin. It spoke. It spoke in my brother's voice. Wesley, why did you leave me? My heart shattered. Cat squeezed my hand. Don't listen. But I couldn't look away. The creature stepped closer. Toma raised his knife. Back, he shouted. The creature lunged. Toma met it head on. They collided in a blur of claw and bone. The creature shrieked. Toma slashed. Blood, black and steaming, sprayed across the snow. Toma, Cat screamed. He didn't look back. Run! But we didn't. We couldn't. The creature threw Toma aside like a rag doll. He hit a tree with a sickening crack and fell limp. Cat sobbed, and the creature turned towards us. Its eyes were locked on mine. Wesley. I stepped forward. Cat grabbed me. No, what are you doing? I swallowed hard. I have to end this. The creature tilted its head. You left me. Now, I'll leave you. It lunged. I closed my eyes, and then a gunshot. The creature screamed. I opened my eyes. Toma, bleeding, broken, barely standing, held a rifle in shaking hands. Finish it, he gasped. The creature staggered. I grabbed a broken piece of metal from the wreckage, a jagged shard of the station stove, and charged. The creature turned towards me, its mouth hanging wide open. I drove the metal into its chest. It shrieked, a sound that split the night and collapsed. Its body convulsed, twisted, and shrank. And then it was just a man. My brother. Or what was left of him. Cat covered her mouth. I fell to my knees, and Toma collapsed beside us. It's done, he whispered. But his voice was wrong. Weak, fading, Cat knelt beside him. Toma. He shook his head. Go, he whispered, before the land decides to keep you too. He died with his eyes open, staring at the moon. We walked for hours. The sun rose slowly, turning the snow pink and gold. The forest felt different, lighter somehow, as if something had been lifted. We found the trail by midday. By dusk, we had reached the road. The search team found us the next morning. They asked what happened. We told them we got lost. We told them we found a cabin. And we told them a man had saved us. We didn't tell them about the creature, or the running, or the voice that still echoes in my dreams. We didn't tell them that sometimes late at night, when the wind is just right, I hear footsteps outside our window, fast, circling, and waiting. Cat sleeps beside me now, her breathing soft and steady. I haven't slept in days, because last night I heard it again, running, circling, and then, faint, almost imagined, a voice, my brother's voice. Wesley, you left me once. Don't leave me again. I know what that means. I know what's coming. The Washuge is never truly gone. It just waits. For hunger, for guilt, for winter. And winter is coming. The first time I heard the scream, I thought it was a bobcat. I'd been a ranger in the Ozark Highlands for 9 years, long enough to know the difference between the usual night voices and something that didn't belong. But that sound, God, it cut through the timber like a serrated blade. Not a howl or a roar, something between a man's last breath and a bull elk's bugle. It stretched thin, almost until it frayed. It came from the ridge locals call the Devil's Backbone, a narrow spine of limestone that juts above the hollows like a crooked finger. Folks around here don't hike it after dark. Some won't even hike it at all. They say the trees grow wrong up there, that the shadows move even when the wind doesn't. I used to laugh at that. Used to. The scream came again, closer this time, and the radio on my belt crackled like it was trying to crawl off my hip. Ranger Holt, you copy? Dispatch sounded jittery. We got a 911 from a campsite near the Backbone. Caller said something was stalking them. Then the line dropped. Human or animal, I ask. A pause. They didn't say. Of course they didn't. I grabbed my pack, my flashlight, and the .308 I hoped I wouldn't need. The night was thick with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin like a second shirt. The moon was a thin sickle behind clouds, barely enough silver to top the pines. I started up the trail, and the woods went quiet. Not silent, quiet. The kind of quiet that feels intentional, like something's listening. The campsite was only a mile in, but the trail felt longer. The trees leaned over the path like they were eavesdropping. Every few minutes I'd catch the smell of something musky and sour. Like wet fur left to rot. When I reached the clearing, the fire was still burning. But the tent, it was shredded. Not torn by a bear. Bears rip for food. This was different. The nylon was sliced in long, clean arcs. Like something with claws had circled the tent and tested the fabric before committing. Blood dotted the leaves. Not much. A smear here, a drip there. Enough to say someone was hurt. Not enough to say they were dead. Hello? I called. This is Ranger Holt. If you can hear me, call out. Nothing. Then movement. A flicker of shadow at the tree line. I swung my light towards it. Two eyes reflected back. Red. Not the dull amber of a deer. Not the green flash of a raccoon. Red. Like coals. Like something lit from inside. The eyes blinked once and then vanished. I raised the rifle, heart hammering. Show yourself. The woods answered with a low, rumbling growl that vibrated in my ribs. Not a bear. Not a big cat. Something bigger. Something wrong. I backed towards the fire, keeping the rifle trained on the dark. Firelight gives you a little safety in the Ozarks. Not much, but enough to see what's coming. That's when I found the phone. Half buried in leaves, screen cracked, still recording. I hit play. Static. Then a man's voice, panicked, whispering. It's watching us. Jesus Christ, it's watching us from the ridge. It's got horns. A scream cut him off. Not his. Something else. Something that sounded exactly like what I'd heard earlier. The recording ended. I pocketed the phone and turned towards the ridge. The Backbone loomed above the treetops like a jagged silhouette, and something was standing on it. A shape too large to be human. A shape with horns. I should have called for backup. Should have waited for daylight. Should have done 100 other things besides what I did. But I'm a ranger. People were missing, and something was hunting them. So I started up the ridge. The trail narrowed as I climbed, the ground turning rocky and uneven. The trees thinned until only twisted oaks clung to the limestone. Their branches curled like arthritic fingers. Halfway up, I found more blood. And a boot. Just one. The leather was shredded. The sole bent like something had crushed it with a fist. I kept climbing. The wind shifted, carrying the smell that made my stomach clench. Coppery, animal, and old. Like a cave that hadn't been opened for centuries. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine, not human. Slow, heavy, and deliberate. I raised the rifle and swept the beam of my flashlight across the ridge. The light caught fur, black, coarse, matted. Then horns, curved like a ram's but thicker, rigid, almost stone-like. Then the face. God help me. The stories don't do it justice. The Ozark Howler isn't just a big cat with horns. It isn't a bear with a deformity. It isn't anything that belongs in these woods or any woods. Its eyes glowed red, not from the light, but from something inside of it. Its jaw was wide, teeth long, shoulders too high. It stood on 4 legs, but could rise onto 2. Its breath steamed in the warm night air, and it was staring right at me. I froze. The howler didn't. It moved with a speed that didn't match its size, lunging forward in a blur of fur and teeth. I fired once, twice, 3 times. The shots echoed off the ridge. The creature didn't fall, didn't even flinch. It stopped inches from me, close enough that I could smell the rot on its breath, and its eyes locked onto mine. And then it spoke. Not in words or any language, but in meaning. A pressure in my skull and a voice without sound. Leave. My knees buckled, my vision blurred, and the world tilted sideways. And then the howler turned, not to flee, to hunt. Something behind me screamed. The missing campers. I staggered after it. The ridge opened into a narrow shelf overlooking a deep ravine. Moonlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the scene below. 2 campers, young, maybe mid-20s, were cornered against a fallen log. One clutched a broken branch like a spear. The other held their arms, blood soaking through their sleeves. The howler circled them, slow and deliberate, savoring their fear. I raised the rifle again, knowing it wouldn't matter. "Hey," I shouted. The creature turned its head towards me. Not its body, just its head. Like an owl. Its neck stretched, vertebrae cracking. The red eyes fixed on me again, and the pressure returned. You were warned. The howler lunged. Not at me, at the injured camper. I fired until the rifle clicked empty. The bullets hit. I saw them hit. But they sank into the creature like it was made of smoke and muscle, not flesh. The camper screamed. The howler's jaws closed around their torso, and then the woods exploded with light. Not fire, not lightning. Something older. Something that came from the ground itself. The howler recoiled, snarling, its fur bristling. The light pulsed from the ravine floor, from cracks in the limestone, from symbols carved into the rocks that I swear hadn't been there seconds earlier. The creature backed away, hissing like steam hitting cold water. The symbols glowed brighter. The howler vanished into the trees. Not ran, vanished. Like a shadow pulled back into darkness. The light faded. The woods went still. The injured camper collapsed into my arms. The survivor's name was Daniel Reyes. His friend Eli was gone. Taken. No trace left, but blood on the leaves. Daniel was half-conscious, mumbling through shock. It, it, it came from the ridge, eyes like fire. It wasn't supposed to be real. I carried him down the trail until rescue met us. They asked what happened. I told them the truth. They didn't believe me. They never do. But the next morning, when the sun rose over Devil's Backbone, the search teams found something carved into the limestone where the light had erupted. Symbols. Old ones. Older than the Osage. Older than the Quapaw. Older than anything that should have been on the ridge. And in the center of the carvings, a single black hair. Thick, coarse, longer than my hand. DNA testing came back inconclusive. Of course it did. I still patrol the Backbone. Still hear the screams some nights. Still feel the pressure in my skull when the wind shifts just right. The Howler is out there. Not a legend, not a story. A guardian. Maybe a warning. The thing older than the hills. Older than the bones beneath them. And every time I climb that ridge, I feel the same message pressing against my thoughts. This is not your place. But I go anyway. Because someone has to. Because people wander where they shouldn't. Because the Howler isn't the only thing in those woods. And because the symbols on the ridge are glowing again. Brighter. More often. Like something beneath the Ozarks is waking up. And the Howler is no longer warning me to leave. It's warning me to prepare. If you enjoyed tonight's story, please remember to hit that like button or leave a comment. And if you want to hear more from this channel and more stories that we've got written, please remember to hit that subscribe button. It'd mean a lot to us. Thank you, and have a great night.